the mayor, and Bob and I rode around this afternoon and looked at some places. So, Bob, you want to tell us what you found?
Yeah, okay. Mr. Chairman, I got this mic. I'll stand in one spot so he didn't have to chase me. Are we on? So I have two items to share with the committee tonight. The first one is jail tours. Is it all right if I go ahead and talk about that for a second? So I've arranged for 3 jail tours. I know, show of hands, everybody got a day job? I know that, right? I actually could get one of them a night tour, an afternoon tour, say starting around 5:30. Would that help the committee? Smith County would be one I could do. We could reach out there early, and I think I can get the sheriff to agree to that. So if you'd like me to do that, I will. The other one is Ray County. That pretty much going to have to be a day tour, and the sheriff will be available for us for that. The other is a little jump, and that's Monroe. So I picked recent because I want you to see what they're doing out there with new construction techniques. And that's really a great jail to look at Ray County. That's an old hospital. So the confined housing came up out of the ground, but they took the hospital and turned it into all the offices, and they got some courtrooms out of that too. So what I'll do is I'll publish this. Mayor, with your secretary, I can publish it, send it over to her by email, and she can share it with everybody. Okay. Okay, I'll send it to you and her, okay. All right, so we'll do that, and I might find a 4th one, but right now I'm at 3. So if we can do the night one in Smith County, by show of hands, how many thinks? Hey, great, okay. And we're talking about getting an inmate bus for you to ride on. How many? What? You don't? I was going to get one of those inmate buses from TDOC, put all the county commissioners on. And you don't want to do that? All right, we'll try to find a van or something to do that with. So you won't have to drive yourself over there. We'll just have a place to meet here, get in the bus, and go. So one of the things we do when it comes to property, I don't have copies for everybody, but if you'll email me, I'd be happy to share, and I am going to send this over to the mayor. So we use a property matrix. Looks like this. And it just about covers everything you'd want to know about a piece of property if you're looking at putting a jail on that site. So I actually used that today as we went around and looked. One site jumped out at me. Now, let me do a disclaimer real quick. Tennessee Corrections Institute, nor any agency in the state of Tennessee, to my knowledge, can tell a county commission where they're going to put a jail. Let's just be clear about that, okay? So there's my disclaimer. I'm not going to tell you, you have to put it here or you put it there. You can use my expertise. You can ask me my opinion. I can give you my opinion. I will always pose questions about, is this good for the project? But I will not tell you this is where you're going to put a jail. Everybody understand that, right? Okay, good. I don't want to find out later that somebody said, Bob said you had to put it here. So the sites that we looked at, some stood out to me very favorable. So the first site here I have on my list was site A, and that is the Hayes property. As I go down through these boxes and check them, they checked all the boxes, all the boxes. That's the entire piece of the property I would think would be a good choice for the county. I think it's broken into 3 tracts. One of them's 18 acres.
It's a entire 38 acres.
Okay, all right.
They said that they would sell in different pieces if you want.
So to give you an idea of what's on this page I've got in front of me, the first question is, if the site includes courts and or sheriff's offices, is it located within the county seat? Is it convenient for family or volunteers? Distance to court, and that particular property is probably about 3 miles. Enough for one-story facility? Yes, of course. Would it accommodate parking? Yes. Accommodate exercise area? Yes. Accommodate expansion? Plenty of room there for that. Large enough to accommodate courts? Plenty of room for that. Building acreage? Open. It's just huge. There's no current usage, and that's referred to as by the architects as a green site. I mean, there's nothing on it. Availability of sewer, yes, that's an 8-inch out there on the sewer. Availability of electrical, 3-phase runs right in front of it. Availability of water, absolutely yes. It actually checked all the boxes without a negative spot anywhere. The second site I looked at was Wright site, so that had some negatives. The Wright site, getting traffic flow in and out of it was a negative. It's got some land on the back side of it that I don't see as even usable. It's only the front side of it I think would be usable. I didn't see on the third site, what was the name of our third site?
Culvert.
Okay, it's up here on the top of I got it site C. It was it was all negative.
Now, which site are you talking about now? You said site 2. What site?
Right.
The Rice property out on Bright Hill Road.
Right.
Yeah, the Joe Rice.
Rice, okay. I don't hear good, so.
Yeah, it's about the
I
same
apologize for
distance.
that.
It's about the same distance to your courthouse, and you're going to be transporting back and forth to the court. So, it came in second. And
Where's
this
it
is
at, Red
something,
Hill?
if you've got a copy of this, you can actually do for yourself. But for some reason on that side, I wrote in big letters, big problem with traffic. I just don't think the roads, a lot of work would be done there. Especially later if you added a criminal justice center. So, yeah, the traffic would just be unbearable. So that's basically how we do it. That's about as scientific as you can get. Does it check all the boxes? The Hayes site has potential for other things. Let me ask you this. What's your EMS building like? Ambulance service. What is your county fire department like? This is kind of forward thinking, but I just have to talk about sometimes other counties and what they did. So I've got other counties that bought property like that, and they just made it a one-all, where it's got the EMS, it's got the fire department, it's got the criminal justice center. They bought the property, and it all fit on that. So it's something that once the county owned the property, if you wanted to use future projects, you could. The land clearing, is that needed? Very little on the right, on the Hayes side, a little bit on the right one. I didn't write a lot about my third site because I wasn't impressed with it at all. Those were my opinions. You know, it's Bob's opinion, right?
Bob, can you elaborate a little bit more on the current site?
On which site?
The current site, where we are now.
Well, we've talked about this a lot, and you've heard from Bell Construction, and you've heard from the architects, and from our standpoint, I just don't see it, and it's going to be more expensive to build. As you heard from Rick Bruin with Bell Construction, it was like $5 million, $4.5 to $5 million more to try to do something with that site. I haven't been happy with that site all along. I just don't think it's there, and I don't think you're going to be able to get future growth out of it. That's when you build these jails, you got to think about the future. And you don't want to have your children in this room 20 years later trying to figure out what we're going to do. So you need to select a site that has the availability to grow, because it is going to grow. I wish crime would stop today. We just know that it's not going to.
So even if we could get the property next to the current jail, you still don't think that property is big enough?
It's going to box you in, and you're not going to have room to grow. Now, that's getting past the architects and the engineers to tell you what would go on there. Depending on how many beds you wanted, I would suspect that's going to be a stacked jail. So that means more staff. So if you build multi-levels, that's a staff on the first floor, staff on the second floor, third and fourth. So it's really staff intensive. You build a radius design where there's a central control and we can look out and see all the inmates. That's what you go with. Back in the day, it's not a linear jail, but it's laid out linear. So you have a mezzanine, so that's a second story, but it's inside, so it's just a staircase going up to it. I don't see that downtown. Not to mention it's going to tie up the traffic downtown. You're going to have to shut a street down. You don't have a layout yard. And the back side of that property slopes off, so I don't know how much of it you could actually use. I didn't actually grade that one, but I did walk it last time I was down here and looked at it. I wasn't impressed. I think you need to be looking at property that you can take care of in the future. So I did look at, you got a lot of room in that site out there, that Hayes site. You know, I looked at where your schools were going today. You got a new school going in? That property you guys showed me, you're going to lose some soccer fields. But you know what? Out there on that hay site, you got a lot of room for soccer fields. You have a jail out there. You have soccer fields out there on the back side of it, or front side, or whichever way you went.
I don't think they're gonna get in the soccer field with the new school, but I may be wrong.
You're not.
You're right. I
They're
think
not getting
it
into
would
it.
just
I think
be
you're losing
the bus
soccer
lane will
fields
go
you
through
got
it.
now.
No, we're not even looking at building where the soccer field, so you're wrong about that.
They're-
And that's another scare tactic
Well,
of this selling property and buying property. So let's get our information correct if
Okay,
we're gonna
are you
talk.
losing the
I
soccer-
don't think we're gonna get in the soccer fields, to my knowledge.
Are you losing the soccer fields where you're doing the new school?
No.
No.
Okay.
The school is actually going more behind family medical than it is beside Northside.
But the drive-through is going that.
It will.
Or you will lose the soccer field.
Okay, let's get our facts straight like this gentleman said. So,
Yes.
you losing the soccer fields?
No. That's per Patrick Cripps. They're not losing the soccer field.
I think the way the current design is, that was posted, shows those two bus lanes and car pickup lanes going through the middle, but I think they had mentioned that, so they don't lose the soccer fields, they might move it closer to the tree line to where it would
And let's
not
not
cut through the
forget,
middle
there's
of it.
acres closer to the road that's never been used, that's still there for purposes. So, no, soccer fields ain't being lost. I don't want that to get started around the public now.
field has never been used. I know, 'cause I wish I.
Yep. But either way, back to the jail, Bob. So leave
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
leave TCI out of it. Your professional opinion is where that jail is sitting now is not where even now it needs to be. Because Bob Baskets threw up a lot when it's beneficial to the ones who don't want it or want something different. So currently, if we had to build the jail that we have, would you suggest it to go right where it's sitting now?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Bob.
Other questions from the commission?
I just want a point of clarification, because we're kind of restarting this whole thing, in a sense, with the exception of we've got our study done for us, from Mr. Hart. The jail was in danger of decertification because we were housing people in the basement, is that correct?
That was one of them.
Okay.
The other was availability to classify. That's a big one. The other one was light, natural light. And none of
And
that's
is-
changed.
Square footage per prisoner on the whole left side.
And are we still housing people in those places where there's not enough natural light?
I hope not, no. To my knowledge, they've been moved out of there. You're housing them in other
Or-
counties.
Or square, right, or the squeak, so we've
Well-
taken care of that for now. And
No.
we, because we've had a reduced,
Well,
is that, okay, help me out.
That's not true either. So there's
Okay.
nobody housed in the
That's why I'm
basement.
wanting clarification.
Correct. There's nobody housed in the basement. But y'all's dormitory don't meet natural light either, does it not?
And some of the annex.
All right.
But what they asked us to do is find out a way to do that. So we took and threw them to the block, put up, plexiglass, so that they could get things in and out to show some kind of natural light.
Right.
We threw a hole.
yeah, they've tried to address that. So you have dormitory, which is not, you probably have some dormitory if you build a new jail. When you get to that point and you get into concept development, we'll actually we'll all work together to decide what kind of beds you're actually gonna have. But where you're hurting is you don't have those two-person cells. So you have no way to take somebody that's combative and put them away from the other inmates, people with, STDs, people with mental illness, you don't have that capability. You just got them all in one big room. So we don't want to make that mistake. If you move forward building a jail, let's make sure that we build it so it takes care of classification.
So the classification, I know in particular, like with the women, because we don't have separate place to put them, correct? We don't house any women. Right, that's what I. Right,
If you get a woman
right.
right now, can you get her out in 3 or 4 hours to another jail, or you just having to, it'd be the next day? You just have to do what you can do. That's the hardest population in the state is females. Sex offenders. Get them moved to another jail because they don't want to take them. They don't want them.
So my wondering is just, again, considering what we can afford to do, is there a way to do something at the current site to gradually
If
make
you,
it so that,
in
and I don't
in
know.
regards
I
to your
don't know.
certification, or I'm not understanding the question.
is there a way we can renovate, build at the current site, or even with the land next to it, to make it work?
Well, let me say this. This is not a scare tactic, sir. Make sure everybody in the room understands that. If you start any construction on the facility that you have now, you will have to submit those plans, and you will have to bring the building you've got up to code. Currently, Your building does not meet code. You would have to spend a lot of money just to get that facility to meet a code. And then you would probably not net any beds out of it. In fact, you'd probably lose beds. So, what are we at now? 51 beds? Yeah, it'd probably end up closer to 30.
I think when I ran the math on it, using the clear floor space and everything, we were at 102 originally. Currently, we're at 52, but that 52 is only because we're under a plan of action. If we were to say, well, we're just going to leave it as it is, the certified count would actually drop to 44, 42, 44. The other thing to consider is so the jail right now, there was a phase 1, a phase 2. So phase 1, if you look at the jail from the side, it's half, half of a building. So if you built the same exact thing on the back side of the property and finished the roof out basically, we would then still not even have 102 beds like we had just a few years ago. So to your point, yeah, we would, even using the current property, if we were to go to the phase 2, we still wouldn't even have 100 beds certified. And that's assuming everything was up to code, if we just did a mirror image of it. So to your point, yeah, we would have to go up to get, I'm not sure, even if we bought the property next to it, if we would be able to get back to 102 beds. That would be best case. But to get more than 100, which we need, we would have to go up at the current site. At what cost? $4 to $5 million more than to build somewhere else. The other thing too is, even if we were to, if we were to go up and say, well, we'll just build it 4 stories and 2 stories will sit empty. Eventually it gets to a point, maybe it's 50 years down the road, but it'll be too small and we won't be able to expand there. And then what happens with the old jail? Now you have a 4-story jail that's not used. If I'm a developer, the current jail is doable. You want the location. What's there can be modified to make some sort of other business, or you could just tear it down. But I think it's a lot less desirable for a developer if there's a 4-story jail there, because there's really not much you could do with it as far as normal business goes. But either way, it's, again, 40, 50 years down the road, whether it just, the building deteriorates or the size is not big enough, we'll have to go somewhere else. The original jail was built, I think, in the 20s, and then again in the 50s, and then the current jail's been added on to several times. So expansion absolutely is going to have to be considered.
I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of those dates. And is Wednesday a bad day?
Yes.
Let me hear it's church now. We gotta get back to it. Is Tuesday or Thursday? Which is better, Tuesdays or Thursdays?
There's not a good day, Bob.
Okay, just as long as it ain't Friday or Wednesday,
There's
right?
committee meetings and everybody's in a committee and those fall on any day of the week pretty much, so, except for Fridays.
We better shoot out a couple days for Larry.
All right, anything else for me? I'm gonna sit over here and listen.
Anyone like to make a motion on property?
Just to clarify on property, the site C,
Site C is the Culvert property.
where is that one at?
That one is on Smith Road, it borders on Smith Road, which wraps around, it's almost directly across the street from the county garage. Where you go out
Okay,
past the
so-
county garage and take that real sharp turn to the right,
Yeah, so it'd be like the property that,
all that property right there on the right.
yeah, so it,
Behind north side.
yeah, the tree line
Yeah.
splits it, so it would be on the other side
And
of the tree line.
it does border right behind north side.
Right, okay.
That was current Smithwell Elementary site, was that something y'all thought about?
I'm sorry, I
The
couldn't hear.
current Smithwell Elementary site, I just didn't, I know, that's, I was just trying to think of all the properties that we have all brainstormed the last year and a half. I just didn't know.
Turn your mic on.
Sorry. The current-
People with hearing aids have a hard time hearing.
Sorry. The current Smithville Elementary site, I mean, that's been a site that's been mentioned was that a site that was discussed also today, or didn't?
Current Smithville Elementary site? We didn't look at it today. Even if we were starting school construction today, you're probably still looking at 2.5 to 3 years, which would be transporting prisoners back and forth for 2.5 to 3 years to the other counties. And then two, you got those apartments that border right behind it, plus you've got a daycare right across the street. I'm not sure that, I mean, you obviously, to build inside the city limits, in my opinion, it's going to be tough to stay out of a residential area. Because even the Culvert property, you got houses all down Smith Road, plus you got North Side right behind it. The Rice property goes back in behind houses, and there'd be a lot of clearing back there of woods that we'd have to clear out.
And
That's a buildable spot.
that's the property that's like in between the high school and the hospital.
No, the
No.
Rice property is out on Bright Hill. If you go out Bright Hill, you remember where the,
Right Hill.
who had the barn out there?
Bruce Medley?
Bruce Madden.
Yeah, Bruce.
Right before you get to the barn, those big fields on the left,
Okay, yep.
part of that property is owned by Dub Evans,
Right.
who doesn't want to sell it. Part of it is owned by the Rice family. What that property does, when you go to the back side of it, it drops off pretty sharp back there, going down before you come back up to Highway 70.
Right.
Down to the creek.
Yes. Sorry, Tom.
Sorry.
You're talking 2 to 3 years before you could get access to the property because of the elementary school there now. Then you're talking another 2 to 3 years to get the jail built.
Right.
So you're talking 4 to 5 years from now before the earliest you could have a usable jail.
I
During
think-
which all that time you would be transferring prisoners somewhere else.
And I think the other thing to remember about that too is the school board owns that property.
Right? Everybody,
And we don't have
we keep
control over it.
saying, we could put it there, but we don't own it.
And I'm not
We
saying.
don't own it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to put it there, I just know that is a community question that's been brought up multiple
was
times, and I
brought-
think it's a
it
good
has been
discussion
brought
to
up.
have tonight
It has been
also.
brought up.
I ain't saying the school board would or wouldn't give it back, but if they could sell it and make them some money, I would have figured they would sell it and make them some money rather than just give it back to us.
Sure.
And we're
And
still
it
not,
makes sense.
still not factoring in the cost of demolition and the size of the property.
What happened to the property behind Busy Mart?
That was going to be my next question. Allen's Ferry.
It is outside the city limits, and the city of Smithville has voted not to annex anything outside the city that we picked to build a jail.
So I thought I was told Monday at the meeting, we didn't, I ain't trying to sound mean, need their permission for that to be annexed.
That's for zoning. If we're outside the city limits, they would have to annex it because the sheriff's office has to be inside the
Understand
city.
that part.
So they would have to annex it, and then if you look at where the sewer is out there, from the high school, you gotta go across, somehow or another, you're gonna have to cross school property, or you're gonna have to cross where DUD is to get through the property back there with the sewer. The sewer does not come up Allen's Ferry Road, to my knowledge, because that Allen's Ferry Road is outside the city limits.
Kilgore Restaurant got into that situation
Well, yeah,
on
but-
sewer.
So the school is fed from the front, from the main road.
Yes.
Health department's tied into the school, because
Right.
unfortunately, we have to deal with all that. So I don't, you're right, I don't know if it comes through Allen's Ferry or not.
It does not.
And if you ask them why they didn't put bathrooms at the soccer field, the new one they built, there's no sewer down there for it.
Yeah, I know.
And they'd have to run their sewer uphill to get back up to the school to attach onto it, which means you gotta put a sewer pump in.
My only concern about Hayes is, we all remember that property was ridiculously priced. I mean, I think everybody chuckled when we got that original cost that they wanted for that property. It is probably the most ideal, but are we now willing to pay, what they were asking for it? Now, since they know they got it, kind of got our hands tied, I mean, I'm still not for giving them what they wanted for it and/or taking their property either. I mean,
18, a little over 18 acres is 1.25 million. Is their current price on it, right, Mayor?
and is that easily accessible? Because one time they were wanting to give us this little crummy track to get back there and have to go through everybody else.
There's actually 2 points of access. One is if you come out of Walmart parking lot, you go straight across the street, and there's an easement there to go back to it. The other one is if you go around through the housing project back there on the first street, right at the end of that street, there's a dead end right there, which goes right into that property. So all you'd have to do is just take that fence down basically and go through it. So you'd have access from 2 points.
So let's back
But
up a
still,
minute.
very, very
Pardon?
poor access.
Yes.
Let's back up a minute. If we're talking about financial sense and questioning the Hayes property, there was a willingness last year to pay the outrageous price that the woman wanted for the little piece of property over here adjoining the jail of like $700,000 or something. So I'm not quite understanding why there would been a willingness to do that and not willing to pay the price that Hayes is asking for the piece of property over there near the Walmart, which to me is ideal.
It is ideal, and it also gives us room to expand in the future.
I've had a lot of surgeries over the past couple of years. When on earth did we ever decide that paying, I think it's Diane Kirby, her price that she wanted? I don't think that was ever voted, or anybody was in favor of that one either.
No.
So that's wrong on that one too.
She was asking like 5.4
Yeah.
for the entire property, all 38 acres.
Let's say,
And our appraisal was like 1.5? 1.485 was
So-
what we appraised at it.
so let's consider this. If we bought the 18 acres for the price that she wanted for the 18 acres, guess what? If we put a jail there, the value of the rest of that piece of property is not going to be what she's trying to ask for it. And so in time, we're going to be able to buy that piece of property too, at a reasonable price. Because the value of that piece of property is going to go down as soon as it's discovered that we're going to put a jail on the 18 acres.
So I'm just gonna throw this out here. Our idea is to get it cheaper, is to stick it to her and drive her property values down, so we, as a county, can get it cheaper.
No,
But
I'm
not-
not
That's
saying.
what you said. We buy it, her land goes down.
And
We'll then get it for cheaper.
They're the ones that are giving us the price for the 18 acres.
I understand, and I said
So
it
it's not-
before. I think it's ridiculous, but it's every person's right to ask whatever they want for their stuff. I think us doing something to try to get it for cheaper in the long run, doing somebody dirty, I think that's wrong all in its own.
I'm not talking about doing anything dirty. It's just common sense. It's just common sense real estate dealing. I mean, the fact is pretty clear.
Are they
I-
willing
you-
to give any of that that's accessible from the main highway? Because, I mean, now we're talking about all court entrances, jail entrances are gonna be through neighborhoods, the same as Smith Road would be over here. So we're no better over here as far as access than we would be on Smith Road.
Yeah,
I
we
would
could ask-
argue that if we paid her price for that entire piece of property, in the long term, it is going to be well worth the money spent, even if it just sits there and isn't used.
Did we have a price for the full, was it 30 acres or? I think there was we had gotten, the last email was just the back part for the one and a half-ish. And then the front, for the front piece, that on a per acre was, well, it was significantly more because of the Highway 70 frontage.
So just consider this for a moment. Which would you rather spend $5 million on? An additional $5 million to build a jail on the current jail site, or to build the same jail over on the Hayes property and pay another $5 million for it? Which would you rather do? Which do you think would make more sense?
I mean, if we're just throwing money around, shoot, we can buy all kinds of land in DeKalb. The
So,
point is it ain't like we just have an abundant source of it to throw around. What, Matt, do you remember what it actually appraised for?
Right at
Okay.
1.5 million.
1.485 is what it
So
appraised.
has the county offered her anything other than the 1.485?
We preliminarily discussed approximately 8 months ago or a year ago, I'm not quite sure, about just offering her $2 million for all of it, and then she rejected that offer.
Did she reject it or the real estate agent?
Well, the real estate agent acts as a liaison between the seller and the buyer, so it did not come from the owner's lips, but it come from the real estate agent that the owner of the property told her.
Now, here's a question, because I know nothing about real estate. Can somebody not reach out to the owner? Or once you have a realtor, is the owner's off limits? I don't know how that works.
Well, that's the point of the realtor, so you don't have to negotiate with the owner directly. You know,
I
they're,
mean, I would talk to somebody who's not making a bigger commission off a property than, you know, offer the owner $2 million or $2 whatever and see what she says.
I've spoken with Peggy, and she asked for me to go through the real estate agent.
If, once you have a contract with an agent, even if you personally turn and sell the property to somebody else, you still got to pay the real estate agent's fee. That is typical, standard real estate dealing with a real estate agent.
I understand, but their fee usually ain't $3 million.
one thing that was never talked about where the current site is the Veterans Building. And, you know, we do have an option to Band-Aid for however long we can, or to decide we're gonna, you know, go start new somewhere. But that is one thing that was not talked about. And I've got concerns about the Hayes property being in a neighborhood. And like they said, wherever you access it, you're still going through homes and neighborhoods. They may not cost as much as some other homes in town where some of the other properties are. They've already had Walmart come in, which I go to Walmart. I'm glad we've got a Walmart. You know, you talk about, if we were talking about purchasing that land to put a new library, health department, those kind of things there, I'd be all for it. But I've got real concerns about making that space there for a jail, and then, you know, so anyway. But yeah, we do have options, just like you do with a car. You know, you hang on to it and patch it and fix it up for however much longer you want to until you feel like you're ready to go buy something new. And I don't know.
So when you're talking about patching it up, you're talking about patching up the current building?
I don't know. Or looking at the veterans part, you know, is that an option to tear it down or use that space to build cells that could maybe even just 2 floors? I don't know. Nobody's done any kind of plans other than stock plans for various sites. I don't know. I don't build jails. I don't survey property. And I wasn't involved in any of the other buildings that went on with the jail and additions and prior approvals for certification. And I personally would really rather go see some of these sites before we made a motion on a site. I almost want to see where they are.
Okay, consider this. We talked about the piece of property over here adjoining, selling this piece of property next to the city property for, that roughly estimated that to be worth $500,000. So consider where the jail is sitting now. If we built the jail somewhere else and filled up that piece of property, even if we spent some money to demolish everything that was sitting on it now, that piece of property is going to have some real value that could be used to trade against whatever we spend for property somewhere else, including the Hayes property.
I think what we're gonna run into when we start trying to tear down buildings, what is it gonna cost to get rid of that old material? And where do you put that old material? I mean, that's not material that
Lynn's
you're
car
gonna,
lot.
that's not material that you're gonna take,
But that's,
but you're not gonna take it to the transfer station.
that's, I put that in the same category. If you want to go down that path, then let's circle back around to what happens during the 2 or 3 years that you would be trying to build something on the current site. Where you've tied up the street, you got to have a place to put building materials, you got traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just saying that if you built it somewhere else, now you got a piece of property sitting in downtown Smithville that's got some value. And even if we tore down everything that was there to make it more palatable to somebody, that piece of property is still going to have some real value that could be traded against whatever we're spending somewhere else. And oh, by the way, then we could sell that little lot over there for $500,000 because we got plenty of property to put anything we want over on the Hayes property.
Me personally, I like the Hayes property, and we're already paying for the jail anyway. We're paying for it now, and we're not building one. We're already paying for it.
Anything else?
I think that we probably need to go ahead and officially hire a builder and an architect to where they can lay eyes on these properties and kind of give us a short list on what would need to be done and the potential costs involved. You know, for the Allen's Ferry property, that I like that one the most because based on the prices we were given, it was the cheapest per acre. I think it was close to 40 acre. I think it's 38 acres. It's not surrounded by a neighborhood. It has access to a main road with shoulders. It's about to have a stoplight next to the gas station there. I think if we had the builders and the architects hired on, they could be able to look at that and say, okay, yeah, other than the annexing by the city, if we needed a sewage pipe run over here, it would, this is what we would be looking at cost-wise. For the other ones, how much to site prep, things like that. I think it would be good to have just to kind of compare. Because if that Allen's Ferry property is cheaper, but then we have to do a sewage pipe, it might end up being the same price as, say, a Hayes property, but then we have more land for future growth, and it's not in the middle of the neighborhood. That's my only concern with the Hayes property is it's literally surrounded by houses. And if we don't have that 70 access, I just don't see having a main entrance right there next to Walmart or, as was mentioned, in the middle of a neighborhood. It's just not, it's not ideal. I wouldn't want my neighborhood, to, that is currently kind of a cul-de-sac like that neighborhood is. I wouldn't want it to, have an empty lot that became a main thoroughfare for traffic 24 hours a day,
And who's to say down the road the city wouldn't annex?
I think that's the other thing too. I don't know if they've officially voted not to, or if they've just kind of mentioned it through some people that have spoke to some of the members. I think really what it's going to come down to is what, I think we just need to lay it out to them and kind of, show the cost. Hey, this is the best, this is the best price, and it's going to affect the least amount of people. I think that'll be the biggest. I think that's probably their biggest holdup.
To ask our consultant, Bob, at what point do we hire an architect or a builder?
I don't know what you're gonna build first.
We don't have
You're
the
going
money.
through the plan of action
Don't have the
that
money.
we're doing now. At what point do we hire the architect and the builder?
That's up to your discretion. I'll say this, before you start concept development, they need to be in place. And I've never been for designing a jail without a piece of property. I've done that a couple times, worked with counties doing that, and there's always issues. It's the unforeseen, so if you get the architect and the builder in place, they can help you, like he was talking about, find those unforeseens, and you can avoid them. What happens is things pop up, sometimes with $1 million price tag, and you went, wow, I wasn't planning on that. So whatever property you pick, you've got to do the geos on. You got to do the economic study, development study as far as the ecology is concerned. You got to have the core drilling. You got to have the site evaluation. All those things have to be done by law. So they help you get that done. So it's really up to your discretion. I think you need to execute the contract. In this case, y'all have done a lot of hard work. Your master plan is practically done without the key things you're missing is the site. And by the way, that's always the biggest one. Everywhere I go, it's the biggest one. Where are we putting a jail? The second one is the cost, and we can't get to that cost figure without having a concept development. So we can't really determine that by just looking at renderings. I know we did that in some cases, and it just always falls short. We'll say how many beds, and the sheriff will help us determine that. We'll say what configuration those beds should be. Dormitory is a lot cheaper, but that's not how you set up classification. He needs 2-person cells. So how many of those do we need? The square footage is practically the same for a 1-person cell as it is a 2-person cell. So we don't recommend at TCI you build any single-person cells. We just don't. Just like we don't recommend you put windows in the jail when you can use skylights. It's cost savings, and inmates, to meet the standard, is difference in daylight and dark. Does anybody, you're talking about your old jail downtown, has anybody thought about an exit strategy for maybe using that for any other service? Is there a possibility of that?
Well, I do know that property is eligible for a beer license based on its location. The other side of the square is not, so I don't know, we could do an appraisal and add a couple % because they get a beer license. It's been mentioned, nothing official, but I mean, as been said, it's, it's half of a block on the square, and I don't think anyone's not noticed that there's more and more businesses popping up every day. So it's definitely a lot more lively than it was, say 10 years ago. More businesses, more foot traffic. So it's
I have
definitely-
another question, outsider looking in. Excuse me for my voice. I had a medical procedure yesterday, so I just spent a little time in the operating room, about an hour and a half. So when y'all started talking about doing this, and you looked at the Hayes property, how much time has expired since then to now? And she hasn't sold the property. I'm just curious.
2 years,
About 2 years.
about 2 years.
Yeah, willingness to negotiate is what I'm driving at. Maybe they're willing to negotiate that price. More willing today than they were 2 years ago.
Is it listed today? I'm not sure if it's actually listed. I know a lot of the ones we looked at weren't listed. The Allen's Ferry one that I've referenced is now listed, officially listed, but I'm not sure that the Hayes property was ever officially listed for sale.
So from what I've been told, she doesn't need the money, doesn't really care about the money.
Well, I've never seen a better piece of property, but you'll have to pick the property that suits your project and what's best for the taxpayers.
Well, Matt, how could we go about deciding the property on Allen's Ferry? Just finding out if the city, to a vote, would either annex it in or not annex it in.
They're not going to make that decision because they don't want
I understand they don't
the
want-
repercussions of making that decision of determining where the jail is going to be and where
They're
it's not
gonna
going to
get
be.
involved in this, I
Yeah.
can tell you.
And if I was them, I wouldn't either.
Look, none of us want to make the decision, but if it's brought up to them, somebody's gonna have to say, yes, we will vote on it, or no, we won't vote on it. But at least there'll be a yes or a no on it.
Well, I've discussed it with some, and they're not
Yeah, you ain't gonna vote
willing
on it.
Yeah.
to do
I-
it.
And we can still, look, we're doing a jail.
Yeah, the only thing's gotta be in city limits is his office.
That's right.
Now, I'm sure Patrick won't want to be separated from his people, but
The sheriff's office has to be in the city limits.
I think the
Jail
other thing
does.
too is when you go out into the country, when you get outside the city, I don't know how you can run a 190-bed jail without a sewer.
Yeah.
I think
Can't.
that's a huge problem when you try to go outside the city into the county and build it without a sewer.
Yeah, we don't even need to talk about that, because that's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a problem from the get-go. We're gonna have to be where we got utilities.
Yeah.
There's no other question.
but without access to the main highway, Hayes property is ridiculous for
I
us.
think you could probably get an easement through that first, because the very first part that's not a part of the 18 acres was just the very road frontage. So you could probably get an easement on the side of the property to go to the back. Yeah, it could be a discussion.
Because Knoxville put their jail
it's
in
kinda
a
odd
residential
shape
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now, did you say it was 38 acres?
Did they not bother?
Total was. But she said that the 1.2 number was for 18 acres on the back. But I'm sure, you could negotiate an easement of travel.
So can I make a motion that we
Certainly.
start down that path, that we go back to the agent after, and make some kind of proposal to them for buying the 18 acres and some easement along that edge there that would bring us out onto Highway 70? Because the property is kind of shaped like that, as I remember.
Yes.
So if you bought the 18 acres and got access to Highway 70, to just ask them if they would be willing to do that and how they might want to price to that. I mean, because if we could get that, then once again, that's an ideal location for having this piece of property. And just, if we want to talk about the possibility in the future of the city annexing the piece of property on Allen Ferry, then we can also talk about in the future the possibility of being able to buy the rest of that property from Hayes.
So we got a motion on the floor.
Is the 18 acres even got any accessibility?
Yes.
Yes.
Where can you access it?
When you leave Walmart on the east side,
Or over by
Yeah,
the
you can make
little subdivision.
a four-way there where the side entrance to Walmart comes out on Anthony Avenue. The Hayes owns the property, that grass lot right alongside. So you could make a four-way there, intersection, that would go to the Hayes property. So if you were coming out of the
It's
side
very
entrance to
wide,
Walmart,
too.
you'd be looking at
But
it.
between the houses,
Yes.
Where the,
You'd be driving in between.
Where the
and going
residential-
back in the back. there.
yeah, but where the residential area is.
There is an empty lot there.
But again, the reason for asking about the access onto Highway 70 is to remove the need for Ben having to go up Anthony to get into that piece of property. We still have the ability to do that and probably want to do that for employee parking and that kind of stuff. But if we had an access onto Highway 70, that's where you would come and go with prisoners, for example.
Yep.
So we got a motion on the floor.
Larry, before you go for a second, I got one question.
We really need a second for
I need a
discussion.
second before we,
Yeah, we really are discussing without a second.
if we don't get a second on it, then the motion dies.
And what's the motion
Second
again?
by Glenn.
Glenn,
What's the motion again?
The motion
Restate it.
is that we go back to the Hayes real estate agent, telling them what we're interested in the 18 acres, but we would also like a right-of-way from that 18 acres to Highway 70. Would they be willing to do that, and what would be the price?
so we got a motion and a second by Glenn. Now discussion.
We're doing all this talking, but we've not talked about how we're gonna finance this. Nobody's brought up anything about how we're gonna finance this. What's our plan?
I think we financed it when we raised the taxes.
Yep.
That's how we're gonna do it. We're not gonna go back to these taxpayers and raise taxes again.
No.
The jail is going to be significantly cheaper than the Justice Center.
So,
I think it's, do bonds, that makes enough money.
Sabrina?
so why is a motion needed when we just go back to the realtor and find out? I'm a little,
It moves us forward to getting a negotiation, to get an easement.
Are we negotiating or are we just asking?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
did
sure.
ask
I mean, it's more
They
of a
asked them if they
telephone
would be
call.
willing to do that.
The mayor's made several telephone calls to the agent for us already. We just, what's the price of the easement?
We haven't asked them about an easement that I know of.
No.
It's
Big
okay
ask.
to take time to think through some things. It's okay to take some time to think through some things. I'm afraid we're going to get into a situation that we got into a little over a year ago when the pressure was put on, do we take a vote, jail or judicial center? And then all the work that was done was judicial center, judicial center, judicial center. And, yes, we're going to have to make a decision about a site. Does it have to be tonight?
Beth, we have been at this for 2 years now. At some point, you have to, you have to do something. You can't keep just, well, let's just think about this some more. Let's just think about this some more. We've been thinking about this for 2 years now. And oh, by the way, those votes that we made multiple votes, multiple analyses, including looking at the current jail site. And most of the votes that we took were either unanimous or nearly unanimous. I distinctly remember one referred to in both the newspaper and WJLE in which we voted 11-0 in April to go forward with the Justice Center on a separate site. And that was after multiple other votes we'd had moving down in that direction. I just don't understand the idea of why we need to keep thinking about this. We know what needs to be done.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Myron? No. Oh, Beth, you should actually call the roll.
I need to get a
So
roll.
once it, so we're
Give her-
only voting.
give her
on
just a
whether-
second. She's writing names down.
Yeah, I got it right. I got
We're only voting on you asking them about a right of way.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Need to get with Jimmy Paws, get his list.
I've never, it's just the weirdest thing to vote on.
Andy, Jeff, Craig.
Is the only, is the only thing lacking at Allen's Ferry sewer? Is there electricity that we would need? And
I don't know if there's three-phase power over there. I don't have that information. I know that the sewer, like Larry said, is in front of over there by the high school. So you'd have to get a sewer, you'd have to get a pumping station to pump it from this property up to,
The main highway.
yeah, the main highway.
Serena, you got a question?
I think there's water.
I just want you to restate out loud the vote, what we're doing. I know, we've had lots of discussion. I think I know how simple it is, but I just like it to be restated.
Okay. Tom, can you restate it?
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
I've
it's
got,
that we make a it's a non-legally binding inquiry as to if we might be able to get an easement through the north side of the Hayes property.
Well, it was an expression that we were interested in the 18 acres, but we would also like a right-of-way from that piece of property to Highway 70. Would they consider that, and what would they want for that? For the combined thing, the 18 acres and the right-of-way to Highway 70.
So his is the selection of the property and then the easement is what I'm understanding correctly. And so he's choosing the spot.
Right.
And the easement, if they will do an easement. Okay.
and I've got written down, Tom made a motion to inquire about price with an agent about the Hayes property and an easement on Highway 70.
To Highway 70.
To Highway 70. Thank you. All right.
Sufficient.
And that's just for the 18 acres, correct?
Yes.
The 18 acres plus the right-of-way.
Might as well get updated quote on all of the property while you're talking to them.
That's my recommendation.
Yes. Okay, I'll amend my motion to be that we tell them, we're telling we're interested in the whole thing.
Yes.
So we'd like them to reprice that, but we would also, if we can't come to a deal on that, we would be interested in the 18 acres and the right-of-way. What would be their price for that?
Hayes property.
On the Hayes property.
So now let's clarify. We're not selecting Hayes tonight.
Right.
Because that's what you stated a minute ago.
We're not
And that was a
selecting
no-go
the
for
Hayes
that.
property tonight.
Jeez, all right. So we're just getting
But that's
information.
it's amended, nobody seconded it, right?
I'll second that.
Glenn seconded it.
I hate whoever's giving me these notes tonight.
It's me.
We have a
Tom
motion
and
and
Glenn
an
seconded.
amendment
Beth is
and
gonna call the roll.
2 seconds.
The whole property.
This is about an inquiry into the property
Yes.
and an easement to Highway 70. All right, Myron,
No.
Brandon,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Jeff,
No.
Greg,
Yes.
Mr. Colwell. Sorry, I need to learn the right way to say these names
No.
to address you. I'm a no. Sabrina,
No,
Matthias, Anderson. Mr. Chandler
Yes.
and Chairman Green.
What's the vote?
It's 6 to
See
6.
how I'm gonna vote.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're the breaker.
I'm gonna vote yes.
6 no. 1, 2,
Yes,
3, 4,
You're
5.
the tiebreaker right
6 yes.
It don't feel
Yes.
good, does it?
I'll vote yes.
Okay.
It's the craziest thing ever. We was only voting
So-
on getting information and
7
still voted no on
yes,
getting information.
6 no.
All right.
And y'all realize that with a split vote, the chances of us moving forward with this is a
Deadlock.
waste of time.
What are the no's? What the reasoning on the no's? I'd just like to know.
I do too, since it's only for
That's what I'm saying.
information.
I just
We
want-
wasn't voting to spend money.
I want to
Just
know
get
why.
the information then and bring it back. I'm not ready to say anything about any one site, but I think to go find out, we need more information. We need more information.
I thought that's what we were voting on.
That was what we were voting on.
Well, I don't trust it to not come back and say you voted for the Hayes property.
No, that's not what we were
There you
voting
go.
for.
Well, I mean,
That was not my proposal, and I would remind this commission that last year, again, we've been through 2 years now, this process with the jail, and before we got to the final decision on the budget and the vote for the sales tax increase and et cetera, we had multiple votes that were either unanimous or nearly unanimous. And at the last minute, half of this commission changed its mind and voted no.
This is not a no vote for getting information. I think we need to get all the information we can.
Then
there a
why
motion
did
to
you
adjourn?
vote no?
You gotta,
there a
you
motion to
gotta
adjourn?
finish.
Because it's my right, Tom.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We can't, we got
Public
public
comment.
comments.
But, well, yeah, we got public
We've
comments.
got
You
public
didn't-
comments.
you
Oh, got
didn't-
public
you
comments,
didn't
I'm
finish
sorry.
your vote.
I've been asked, to get an update.
Okay. He never voted, did he?
Yes, he voted, yes.
He did vote yes?
He voted yes.
Yeah, but
He
it's
said yes.
7-6, that's a waste of time.
Thank you.
That's what I want. Thank you, sir. Well, that's a good point. Good point.
All right, I was asked by some of the commissioners to give you an update on where we are with spending for housing inmates and some other things. This is from the start of the budget year this year, from July the 1st until today. In line item 54-230-599, which is our other charges, there has always been $65,000 that has been appropriated to the jail to spend on maintenance, alarm fees that we do monthly, or central heat and air gets paid out of that, and there's some other things, our interpretation services get paid out of that also. So back in December, you added $100,000 to that for a total of $165,000. Back, as of today, we're $213,865 for inmate housing. If you compare that number to where we were in December, the last time I gave you a report on that, we have spent $84,560 for just inmate housing alone. That is also some ankle monitors with a probation service that gets paid out of that. For the expenditures for our everyday maintenance and other things that we do there that comes out of that money, to date we have paid $7,825. Last December was $3,086, which means we spent $4,738.50 in that. Now, I will tell you that $3,153 of that was for a transportation service to extradite an inmate from California back to DeKalb County. So the DA's office done a letter to extradite them back, and we brought them back from there through a transport service. As of today, we're $61,766 in the hole. So that means at the next county commission meeting, if y'all want to, then we need to figure out how much farther we go in the hole and something to get us across March and April. Also, under 54-230-340 is their medical and dental services, which has always had $100,000 is what we've been appropriated in that to spend. For years, we have been under budget in that. This year, we're $128,073.63 that has been paid out. We have a negative balance of $28,073.63 in our line item today. I have $192,432 worth of outstanding medical bills. Now, I will tell you that our company that we deal through with our inmate housing, or inmate medical, they do a reduction on the cost. Most of the time, now this is just across the board, we'll get 40% of that we have to pay. They knock off the 60%. So hopefully, we're at about $76,973, somewhere around there. But we also have medical costs that's outstanding that has not been billed yet. And we also have from today till June the 30th to go on our medical. And I think that is all I have. We are still housing today 18 inmates in other counties. Some of those are females, some of those are sex offenders. Some of those cannot go into the population because of trouble that they have there or had there that we have moved, or they have a very aggravated charge that we can't house them with the other inmates. And females that are there also.
Is part of our medical because prisoners who are in other counties are getting sick and they're going to their doctors?
That is correct. When they notify us that they have sent an inmate to the hospital, we have no control over it at that time. What I've told you is also just what is out of these line items. When if we have an inmate get sick in Bedford County, then we have to send correctional officers down there to sit with them as long as they're in the hospital, and we're responsible for the bill that goes with that. So that drives up cost for overtime, or it takes away somebody out of the jail. There's fuel expense that is also with that, much less us talking about the expense of transportation for inmates for court, for carrying them there, bringing them back for court, and carrying them back. We were fortunate last week to lose some of those inmates. We were above that 18 in other counties, and our number has went down a little bit in the jail, but not much, because we had court all last week. So we had criminal court and general sessions court, so some of those are out. I will tell you that there was a new law that took effect July the 1st of this year, that if someone is charged with an aggravated crime of domestic abuse, aggravated assault, things like that, part of their bond release is they have to be on a GPS monitor that the inmate pays for theirself. So you're looking at probably a $400 setup that inmate is going to have to pay before they're released. So if they can't pay that $400, then they're going to sit there till their case is done. Also, there is a new law that I heard on the radio this evening that they thought it was going to pass the House and didn't know about the Senate yet here in Tennessee, of where anybody that has a charge, a highly aggravated charge, would have no bond. So those are things that I'm having to look at as far as housing inmates to see how our population grows or shrinks. So we've been very fortunate. A lot of people that is on this new GPS system, we had to contract to a GPS company to do that. We've done that, and very few of them, they've came up with a $400, but if they stop paying it, then we have to go pick them back up. They have to be monitored 24/7 through this monitoring service. So some of them's got through, we've been on it, Mayor, how long? Maybe a month and a half, 2 months, I guess. So if they don't pay the next month, then we gain those people back. It's part of their, release of bond to have that.
That's a monthly fee, $400.
I'm sorry?
That's a monthly fee, $400?
I'm not sure. I know it's a $400 setup to get started. Of course, if they tear up anything, then that goes, on there also, so. Those, in my opinion, that law there was set without looking forward of saying, hey, what's it gonna do to populations, who's gonna pay for this? There's some programs that inmates have up there that the state has money set aside for indigent inmates. This, GPS system is not covered in that, so they have to boot the whole 100% of it.
Any other questions for the sheriff?
So the 213,000 spent on housing inmates in other counties, that is only just the billed rate, per day. That doesn't include the officer's time driving back and forth, and it doesn't include fuel, things like that.
That is correct. That is just what we're paying, those counties. And they range anywhere from $40 a day to $55 a day. The mayor and I were talking here the other day, Bob and Jim Hart had talked to us, about extra cells in the jail, how a state inmate, when we house state inmates, you can make money off of that. If that inmate gets sick, they do not go to the hospital for 24 hours, then we pay that. If they go to the hospital over 24 hours, the state picks it up. So you get $42, somewhere around there a day to house a state inmate. Right here's the way to go if y'all decide to put extra cells on, is let another county pay you $50 a day. You have no medical, no nothing, no manpower, no nothing. So I think that might have been what Daniel what was talking about maybe in the beginning. So some of those are making, they're making more than the state is going to give you. I mean, they're making good money at it. That might offset some of that cost some. Because what I would assume that the commission wants to build a jail, not just what we're holding today, but some more cells to stretch us out into the future. And that might be some way to bring revenue back. When I took over in 2006, we've had a little problem with space, square footage, and stuff that is there. So what we done was every time somebody got a TDO sentence, they were gone. Or if we had somebody that couldn't get along in the jail, we'd send that person off or swap out with another county or whatever. So our numbers are deceiving when you look at our numbers on our papers. So always keep that in mind. Even what Jim Hart figured out, they're probably a little deceiving because we should be past that. We have just tried to keep our inmate population down and to keep from having to build on or to build a new facility.
So we probably have some outstanding warrants that we can't execute.
I'm sorry?
I said, do we have some outstanding warrants that maybe we can't execute because there's nowhere to
Got a
put
lot we can execute.
It puts us in a bad bind sometimes. If we have drug roundups, then you either keep them or send them. A lot of the inmates that we get are put on medical watch because they're coming off of heroin or some kind of drug. Well, that usually gets your ER visits. So that's another thing that we've seen where fentanyl and everything that has come through our county, and like every other county around us, you can see their medical bills going up. So that is something that we have no control of. But we try to keep costs down as much as we can, and we'll continue doing that through this cycle. We will be coming to the budget committee to ask for some things when the budget committee meets. So we'll talk about that farther on into the year, I guess. My jail sergeant. She's been with me a pretty good while. She's about to pull her hair out because every day there is somebody has to be moved, something's going on in another jail. For 2 years, we have put more work on her, especially since we've went down to the 52 beds than we ever have. It's put a toll on my court officers because they're having to go pick the inmate up, get the inmate to court, wait till court's over, then get the inmate back to the jail that they came from. So we're in a mess. But we'll, like I said, be addressing that at budget time with the budget committee.
Is all your 52 beds in the annex?
No, they're
So some are in the old facility?
there's some beds in the old part upstairs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then there is our annex part, their annex dorm, and then we try to use our cells that are used to be our maximum security cells in the max back there. If we have to move somebody around, we try to do that, but on court days with all these people coming back, we have to have a place to put them. So that's what we've been doing that and using our holding cells, or drunk tanks for people that can't get along with people in there. So it's rough on court days. All right, I appreciate
Any other
what you're doing.
questions?
Hey, Sheriff, during this whole time that moving inmates, do you have a number of how much we have spent altogether?
No.
A lot.
I regret probably not keeping up with that. as
Well,
time-
yeah, just
time
an
has went by. I can.
So I'm looking at 213,000 here in just 6 months. Is that right? That's, yeah.
Yep. And if you're, I can't never remember the committee's name. It used to be the emergency committee. They see our mileage on our patrol cars there, so we see them going up and down. And when there's no court going on, like in November, we had Thanksgiving and Christmas. They were down some for that quarter, but this next quarter they'll be right back up where they come from. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before people start letting we can get paid to house state inmates to pay for this jail, start running through your heads, I strongly suggest not even look down that road. Bob was also the guy that I had to deal with in White County when we were going to be decertified, because we housed 800 state inmates at all times, because that's what our sheriff wanted us to do. The county commission, we can sit here and vote on whatever we want. The next sheriff, Patrick ain't running, the next sheriff may say, I'm not housing nobody. We're not housing state, and then we're still got to foot that same bill. So I strongly suggest we don't even count state inmates as a funding source. We brought in real gang members into White County that are still there. We brought in murderers from Nashville, Sumner County, and places like that. When they come here, they start dating Joe Bob's sister that's locked up with them. They stay here when they get out. They don't go back to Nashville and take Joe Bob's sister.
Anything else before we open up public comments?
Do we have the cost of the architect and the builder? There's an RFP process done. There was 5 or 6 companies looked at. That was selected. What would be the next step to secure them? And do you happen to know the cost off the top of your head?
So your architect and construction service, once you execute those documents, you start that design cash flow structure. I think I've passed that out before, of what the architect's cash flow structure was. And some of that is an upfront cost. So that's one reason why executing documents is not really the best route to go right now, because we don't have the money or funding in place to pay those people. the ones we've been working with so far, which is Bell and Trainer, they've been working for free, you know, pretty much to gain your business. All the times they've come out to meetings and drawed those maps of all that stuff. Now, they begged me to sign a contract, but obviously I wouldn't. I was waiting for a bond resolution to be passed. That way I would have the funding in place to pay them, because it's a significant amount.
Right.
I believe the architect was like 6% of total cost, so that's, you know, over $1 million that they're making on that project. It depends on what the total cost of the project would be, you know. That's going to change between 20 million and 30 million. It's going to be a lot of money. So, and we don't have that money. That's a reason why we have went in the order we have went in, as in finding out what we want to build, how big we want to build it. That way we know where to put it, and then you come up with a total cost. You borrow the money, and I don't even want to throw a number out because it's going to make things more complicated. So we borrow some amount of money.
Right.
And then when you borrow that money, you have the money to pay your architect and your construction service manager and all that stuff. And then you bid out everything, obviously, and you have the money there to pay for it. But right now, we don't have any money to pay anybody. We need a bond resolution or something, bank note, whatever funding source or route we want to take. We need to get that in place first.
And until we can actually agree on a piece of property,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
probably not any point in hiring anybody.
The property is why I ask, because, as Bob said, it would definitely be beneficial to have them and have their input on the sites. And I wonder, you know, could I make a motion that we reach out to the two companies that we had selected, the builder and the architect, and say, here's the situation. Could you give us you know, like an upfront contract where it's, you know, maybe a smaller upfront fee to say, hey, work with us, look at these properties, you know, kind of give us a property assessment, so we can continue and at least select where we're going to go. And then from there, that gets the ball rolling. Then we could execute the full contract, you know, percentage cost and things like that.
I don't think we would have to have an architect to determine the property.
Right.
Any of these properties would work. Obviously, there's some other things like sewer and
Yeah.
other things, considerations we can take in, but I mean, I'm sure we can ask Kevin Robinson from Smithfield City on, hey, how much would it cost for sewer to go from,
That was my next question. I was
you
going to
know,
reach out to him.
from the highway to back here?
Yeah.
What's your estimation? I mean, somebody that deals with that stuff all the time.
I was going to just reach out to them and maybe the electric company, so I don't have to vote on that.
Yeah.
But
But architects, they're mainly going to be focused on the building or structure itself.
yeah, so maybe I'll make a motion that we reach out to the builder and see if they would. I don't even know how to word it. Give us some sort of land consultant contract to help us decide which location is going to be the best, and see what the cost on that would be. Maybe it's something we can afford now, because as Bob said, I mean, you don't want to pick a property and there'd be something wrong with it that, you know, none of us here build jails or build commercial buildings, and I would feel more comfortable in any place that we pick to know that someone who does this for a living has looked at it and given us the pros and cons of each. I think
Didn't we just get that from Bob? Did we start this meeting getting that from Bob? He went and looked at the three properties.
Yeah, Bob is a consultant with TCI, and he does do property evaluations, but
okay, well,
he looks at,
if
you know,
he's-
different
well,
factors and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
obviously we didn't do soil tests and stuff, but I mean, that's a totally different ballpark. I mean, you'd have to do a soil test and everything to figure out exactly what that property entails. Now, as far as the utility and stuff, I mean, I think we had a pretty good idea or survey of that.
Anything else? Public comments? Let's set a date for when we're gonna meet next month. Well, or we can wait and let Matt put out his schedule of our other meetings next month and then work in a jail meeting.
However you want to do it.
Yeah, okay? All right, have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye.